Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Jeanette DeRen. I'm the Transportation Planning Director here at PAG.
I'm Natalie Shep. I'm with Pima County Department of Environmental Quality.
Paul Casertano with Pima County Transportation.
John Baskett, San Javier District, the Town Automation Principal Planner.
Good afternoon. Sorry. Mark Pugh, Planning Administrator, San Javier District, Town Automation.
Good afternoon. I'm Nalo. I'm the Public Works Director for the Town of Sahuarita.
Jeremy Moore with ADOT.
Andy Bemis, City of Tucson, Department of Transportation and Mobility.
Noah Pat.
Good afternoon, everybody. Adam Ledford with PAG.
Good afternoon, Pari Mapentong with PAG.
Good afternoon, Jamie Brown with PAG.
In the back.
Peterson with PAG. Chris Joannese of Kinley North.
Anna Odin, PAG.
Dustin Fitzpatrick, PAG.
Colin Cheston, City of Tucson.
Thank you. And then online, we have Fausto,
Yeah, Fausto Burrell, Town of Marana.
Jennifer,
Jennifer Hobart, ADOT MPD.
Tony,
Hi, everyone. Tony Bianchi with Tucson Airport Authority.
Nathan,
Nathan Barrett, Town of Sahuarita.
and Bolivia Jennifer. I'm sorry, Catherine. These things are moving.
Hi, Captain Skinner, Pima County DOT. And since Paul is there in the room, I'll let him be the primary speaker for Pima County DOT in this meeting. I'll be in and out of the meeting.
There you go, Paul. You just got promoted. All right. Did I miss anybody? See none. We move on to item number 2, in-kind reporting. Jeanette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. If you are paid with federal dollars, please let us know. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. Time spent working on PAG RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. I'm going to circulate the sign-in sheet as well if you could sign in and let us know if you how many hours you spent on this. That'd be great. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeanette. Just moving on to item number 3, approval of the September 18, 2025 meeting summary. Action item. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
And second by Fausto. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, review of request for carbon reduction program, also known as CRP funds. Jamie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. And our team is happy to help guide this conversation, and we really appreciate the funding request that we received. I'm going to provide a brief overview and background as part 1 of this. Then part 2 will be some presentations from those that submitted funding requests. And the third part will be the discussion of the funding allocation. As noted in the notice of funding availability, we're hoping for a recommendation from the TPC today that would ultimately go to the Regional Council and RTA Board in early December. If we're unable to make a recommendation, if the committee is, then we have some options, but that's the goal today. So in terms of a brief overview, as some of you may recall, back in July, we came to the TPC and talked about the availability of carbon reduction program funds. And based on that discussion, there was a recommendation to prioritize projects that could obligate the funds in federal fiscal year 2026 and those projects should also be already programmed in the TIP and bicycle and pedestrian projects. And so with that guidance, we also went to the regional council in late July, and they affirmed that recommendation. And so based on that, we, in early September, we distributed a notice of funding availability, and we had a deadline of October 3rd. If we can switch to this computer briefly, Isa, please. We want to show on screen just a summary table of the funding requests we received. We received a total of almost $5.5 million of funding requests. Thank you. With 5 different requests from 3 different jurisdictions. And so the TPC is going to hear about those funding requests today. We, as noted in the NOFA, there's almost $3 million of CRP available. So obviously there's a lot more requested funding than there is available. We had to adjust that slightly this week as we revisited the carry forward amount. So it was reduced by 150,000. So the total is now $2.849 million that's available. So in terms of next steps, again, if we're able to get a recommendation today from the TPC, we want to take it through the committee process, ultimately for an IGA approval by the RTA board as soon as possible, hopefully in early December, so that allows these projects to move forward with the obligation process by the end of federal fiscal year 2026. I'll pause there to see if anybody has any questions before we go into the presentations. The presentations will follow the order in which the funding requests are listed in the TPC packet. So we'll start with the City of Tucson, followed by Pima County, and then the Santa Fe District. Both the City of Tucson and Pima County have PowerPoint slides, and the Santa Fe District has a handout, plus PDF can be shown on screen during their presentation. I see a question from Andy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just clarifying question on the reduction of amount. Is that, which population band is that reflected in?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So we can put on screen, well, we were planning to put on screen the adjusted table once we get to the funding allocation segment of this. So if you need that now, we can put it on screen, or we can, okay, yeah. So we'll put that on screen. So when we get to after the presentations, we'll talk about options for the allocation of the funding amounts. And so PARI has put together some options in Excel that we'll walk through. There may be other proposals that are submitted by members of the TPC, but we do have some backup in case we want to talk about some options. So at that time, we'll put on screen the funding amounts available by population band. And that's a great point, Andy, because the funding is available by geographic areas indicated in the NOFA. So there's funding available in the less than 5 population area, in the 5 to 49,000 population area, and also the greater than 200,000 population area. Any other comments or questions before we jump into the presentations?
Just a quick question about use of that is restricted to that area. So you can't transfer an under 5,000 to a over 200,000 population area and use the entire pool of funding, I'm assuming. Is that correct?
That is correct. We did get some guidance that if a project does span multiple population areas, it is eligible for both funding buckets, but you can't transfer from one area to another. So yeah, I think good question. And so to keep things on track, we did reach out to the submitters of the proposals and let them know that we're going to limit the presentations to 5 minutes. And so I'll keep time, and I've got a little sign, time's up. And we'd also like to limit Q&A to 5 minutes. So we do have a full agenda today, so that'll help us keep on track. And so with that, if the City of Tucson wouldn't mind stepping up to the microphone, I think it's Colin who's going to be presenting for the City of Tucson. Thanks for being here, Colin. And if you don't mind, Isa, please put the City of Tucson's PowerPoint slides on screen.
Thank you all so much for the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to present on our funding requests, to give a little bit more context and hopefully answer any questions that the committee may have.
All right.
Go to the
Feel
next
free
slide.
to, yeah.
Review of our project. This is the Blackledge Bicycle Boulevard. And it's really intended to be a facility for people biking, but also improvements for some pedestrian crossings and safety for all road users. It is 4.5 miles long between Oracle and Columbus. And we're seeking about $2.7 million in funding, although it sounds like that amount may be adjusted. So we do have a little bit of flexibility there. You can go to the next slide. These are the goals of the project. Like I said, we want to improve safety for anybody who's using the street. There is an emphasis on crosstown connectivity for people biking. So that means installing some new push button crossings on the arterials. But we also just want to make it safer for anybody to be able to cross the street and a better place for pedestrians to be able to walk and enjoy their neighborhood. We're also trying to slow and reduce cut-through traffic on our neighborhood streets. Go to the next slide. A lot of you may be familiar with bicycle boulevards, but just in case you're not, these are some of the elements that we are planning to include in this project. Speed humps, shared lane markings, chicanes, traffic circles. A lot of these are intended to slow the cars down, as I mentioned, and make it a safer experience for everybody. We install 20-mile-an-hour speed limit signs and the push button crossings, as I mentioned, at every arterial crossing. These are the specific proposed features for this project. So as I mentioned, there are 5 push button crossings on the arterials. We also have some improvements on the collector streets. So streets like Columbus, Tucson Boulevard, for example, we're adding some green crossing markings and also some warning signs for folks. And then all the items listed in green are the traffic calming features. You'll notice there's 25 chicanes as part of this project, which is a lot. The reason for that is because we really heard strongly from the neighbors along the route that they really wanted to see that feature specifically, more landscaping, water harvesting, and beautification in addition to the safety features. And this map just highlights the crossing treatments that I mentioned. You know, these are kind of the big ticket items, and I think the improvement that really makes the facility work for everybody. A lot of these, the Blackledge is an example of one of our neighborhood streets where we are installing these bicycle boulevards, and they work pretty well without major improvements, just some spot enhancements. But then when you get to the major street, it's really a challenge to get across. And so we have 4 new push button crossings that are called bike hawks, and then we have one hawk to bike hawk conversion, and that's at Country Club. So why are we requesting CRP funding from PAG? We do have some funding for this project, or we did have some funding for this project. Initially, this was part of our Prop 407 Strong Connections bond program. And the reality with that is we're facing a $25 million shortfall program-wide for that funding program. So we're really doing everything we can to shore up the available funding. And that included applying for and being successful in being awarded a Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods grant from USDOT. Unfortunately, all of that funding has since been rescinded. So we received a $2.5 million grant. We were feeling very excited and optimistic about that. And now we're having to change course. And so this opportunity, I think, is a great one to help us recover some of that funding that we lost. And then in terms of why this project specifically, all of the major clearances have already been received by FHWA. So it is in a unique position to be obligated by the deadline that you all have for these federal funds. ADOT is supportive of us moving forward with CRP funding for the project. As I mentioned earlier, we've had really strong community support for this project. A lot of the neighborhoods have been very actively engaged, and they keep asking us, when is this going to be constructed? So we've had a couple of delays with the project. One of them was associated with the redesign that I mentioned. We wanted to add some additional features that were responsive to what the neighborhood told us they want. And so then the last reason, I think, is the opportunity to support RTA's bikeway mileage goals at a relatively low cost per mile. So your match that RTA would provide, or that PAG and RTA would provide, would help support those commitments. That's all I have. Any questions?
Great. Thank you, Colin. Really appreciate the presentation. So you're right on time, and we can allow for 5 minutes of Q&A from TPC members.
Can you explain what the difference between a hawk and a bike hawk is?
Sure. Yeah, so our conventional hawks are designed for pedestrians and pedestrians only. For the bike hawks, we add an additional push button that's adjacent to the road. And then we add a two-way separated bike lane at the approach to the intersection with some flexible bollards usually. Sometimes it's done in concrete, but that's less common. And so that way, when people are approaching on their bikes, they don't have to awkwardly get up onto the sidewalk, hop off their bike, push the button, reorient themselves. So it's just a more seamless experience that's more user-friendly for the bicyclists in addition to the pedestrians.
Has the design been fully complete?
Yes.
If I may, I'll jump in as staff. I think I'll ask this question to everyone. We had talked about the fact that there's, more requests than there is funding, and I think you had acknowledged there's ability to scale. Can you elaborate on that in terms of what would be acceptable in terms of funding from CRP?
Yeah, I want to give an opportunity to defer to Andy here if he wants to answer that question, but I'm happy to if not.
Sure, thanks. We can scale, as Colin mentioned, this is part of the Prop 407 bond program. Each of those projects had a funding allocation associated with them. When you look at all the connections projects in the program, we're facing a significant shortfall that he mentioned. So this project is about $1.2, $1.3 million short right now. We were seeking, full funding for the project. Again, whatever we're able to offset leaves funds in that 407 pot to complete the other projects in the program. Based on the amount that was allocated for this project in that ballot initiative, we're about, like I said, $1.2 million short. So we would be, without supplemental funding, we'd be looking at building, about half the project or making severe cuts. Yeah. Thank you.
Andy, what's the total project cost for this particular project?
It's about 2.7 million, a little over.
Tony, you have your hand up?
Yeah, if I may ask a question. Thank you, Chair. Being new to the committee, please pardon my ignorance, but I'm wondering, is this project, does the city have a transportation master plan or a bike master plan? And is this project shown or identified on that?
Tony, yes, great question. Yes, we do. There's a citywide bicycle boulevard master plan where this project originated. It's included in that. And then it was also included in the Move Tucson, which is our all modes long range transportation master plan for the city.
Okay, great, thanks. And then was it also included as a Prop 407 project? I think we lost the audio.
Heather's still there.
There we
Heather,
go.
you got your hand up?
Yeah, I know Tony's last question I don't think was answered though. Was it about whether it
Yeah.
was in the 407? Can you guys answer that? We didn't hear the answer if it was.
Yeah.
Sorry, maybe audio cut out. Yes, the Blackledge Bike Boulevard was included in the Prop 407 Connections Bond Program. As I mentioned earlier, the current project cost is about $1,200,000 over the bond allocation for it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And then my question was, I heard you say it's design. I'm just curious if that includes the environmental clearance necessary for federal funding.
Yes, it does. That's one of the reasons the project was delayed. So I mentioned the shortfall in Prop 407 projects on the whole program. As a result, we were seeking additional funds. When we were awarded the Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods discretionary grant through USDOT, at that time, the project was fully designed. We went through the environmental and cultural clearance process, completed that. earlier this calendar year before the One Big Beautiful bill rescinded all the RCN grant funds. So we have NEPA clearance, we have the right-of-way clearance, and those have already been issued by Federal Highway Administration. We reached out, with a courtesy request to ADOT if they would honor those. It sounds like they would. The only clearance not in hand is the utility clearance because we've been waiting to just seal the plans since we've been seeking final construction funding. We have every expectation we'd be able to achieve that by the obligation deadline.
Great. Thank you for those questions. We are at 5 minutes of Q&A time. I want to be fair to all of the applicants, so we'll cut off the Q&A for now. So thank you again, Colin. So Pima County, I think have your slides in the order shown in that summary. So I think it's going to be Palo Verde sidewalks, and then the two bridge combo project, and then South Houghton MUP. So Paul, it's your time.
Thank you, Jamie. So we have 3 applications. So I will speak very rapidly to shove 3 applications into a 5-minute period.
You can have 5 per.
I'll have a little bit extra time, which is nice. So the first project up here is our Palo Verde sidewalk project. You may recall from fiscal year 22, this project went through the Regional Transportation Alternatives Grant Funding program. It was the only project at that point that did not receive full funding for the requested amount. And so what we did at that point is we scoped down the project and reduced the number of sidewalk feet in the project, but we also decided to combine it with a highway safety improvement program project in the area that is installing a pedestrian hybrid beacon hawk signal for the crossing in the area. So we're administering this as a joint project, and we have a shortfall on the project. If you go to the next slide. So we're already in the tip. We are at 60% design, I believe, with this project. We are looking at a shortfall of just under 1.5 million. So this request addresses that particular shortfall so that we can deliver the scope reduced amount of sidewalk miles that we agreed to with the original project. This isn't really touching the Hawk side of the project, but again, they're being administered as one project. If you go to the next slide, I'll describe a little bit of the purpose and need here. I'll remind you that this was a result of a joint road safety assessment that was conducted with Pima County, City of Tucson, and PAG in 2019. The major recommendation of that road safety assessment was to improve safety conditions for bicycles and pedestrians in the corridor. This is addressing a portion of that. And so we want to make sure that there's awareness of the origin there. We're connected to multiple businesses and land uses. Most familiar perhaps with the Gospel Rescue Mission. I did just see an article in today's paper that they're expanding those services and providing coffee and food service in that area. So we're going to continue to see pedestrian access and safety challenges in that area. The area is connected to Suntran Route 11. It's one of the highest volume bus routes in the city and the county. And again, we're tying this into a hawk at Palo Verde and East Michigan. Next slide, please. All right, so what we're looking to do is to install ADA compliant sidewalks, curb and gutter, delineated bike lanes on the portion of South Palo Verde Road from East Gas Road to just north of East Columbia Street. We're looking at the addition of 1.6 pedestrian miles and 1.2 miles of pedestrian or bicycle facilities. One point that I was going to ask that hopefully is a little bit clear. These are brand new facilities. This is not taking an existing bike route and enhancing it to a more enhanced bike boulevard or something of that nature. This is facilities where there are no facilities right now. So just want to make that clear. Go ahead to the next slide, please. So we're requesting additional funding to prevent the critical sections of sidewalk from being eliminated or deferred to a future date. As I mentioned, we've already scaled back the scope. So scaling back the scope even further would be very detrimental to the project. We may even have to put the project on hold altogether. I mentioned the history of the RTAG application. The point I just made, the further scope reductions may make the project infeasible, in which case we would have to kind of reconfigure what we're going to do with this project. As I mentioned, we are at the 60% design level, and we're very poised to have the CRP funding obligated by the required May deadline. I think that may be it for that one. So we can pause if that is the will of the committee and Mr. Chair. This is again in the 200,000 population and above category.
Any questions?
Yeah, this is a good time for questions on this project. So we've got 5 minutes. Any questions for Paul? I guess you addressed the question I would have asked about scalability, and it sounds like this one, it would be not viable if we reduce if the funding were reduced on this.
This is our verifiably accurate funding gap that exists.
Okay.
So we're trying to get all of that money. Scaling the project back further would be cutting into bone, and so it puts us in a difficult position for sure.
Andy?
Are there any right-of-way acquisitions expected to left on the remaining portion of the project that's still under design?
I don't believe there are any left. We are dealing with a little challenge with a culvert issue. It's not a right-of-way issue per se, but we've had to come up with some design alternatives that basically we're mixing a sidewalk portion with a shared use portion because cost reductions. We can't extend that culvert in the budget that we have or the budget that we anticipate, but right-of-way is pretty well handled at this point.
Do you have a question?
Yes. How much money do you have on this project already? I mean, how much has it been obligated?
I do not have that up. I had the tip up earlier and closed that down.
We might be able to find them.
Let's see. We have a question. Tony, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So have there been any documented pedestrian safety incidents or accidents along this stretch?
Thanks for that question. There have, and that was actually what instigated the road safety assessment initially, and also the reason that we qualified for state highway safety improvement program for the Hawk installation itself. The sidewalk portion, the sidewalks were not necessarily competitive for the benefit cost requirement of highway safety improvement program funding. So we sought regional transportation alternative grants. But this project addresses a growing safety and accessibility need of a portion of the corridor. We're also coordinating with ADOT to see what opportunities may exist as they pursue alterations with the I-10 main line and getting rid of the Palo Verde traffic interchange. So we're looking at other improvements that we can and will be able to make in the future for the entirety of the Palo Verde corridor. At this point, we don't really have any good solutions or funding lined up at this point. But in the turnback of some of those facilities, we're coordinating with ADOT to take it as far as we can, just to the south of where this project's located.
Okay, thank you.
And our full funding on this, Jose, is 2.378 million. That's what's currently in the tip, so this would add to that.
You're asking for here?
1.4.
That's an additional 1.4.
Correct.
We still have time for questions.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I guess we can. Oh, wait a minute. There's Andy.
Yeah, same question as Catherine. Have you already initiated the NEPA process, or where are you at with that?
We have. We are I'm not sure the exact status of each and every clearance, but I know we're in great shape and we've just gotten through the 60% design milestone. We've had consultation with our project manager as well as ADOT, and we're on track to obligate by May and get into construction.
I guess I don't see any other hands, so Jamie?
All right, thank you. All right, so that concludes Q&A for this project. So Paul, for the next project, feel
All
free to
right.
start.
The next project, it looks like we're looking at the under 5,000 population area. I don't know if we wanted to do this or the other. I'm happy to get into this one. So this is the lowest population area. This is, rural in nature. So we're looking at rural areas. We have a somewhat unique situation for this project. We are designing and reconstructing two bridges that lead to Madera Canyon. These are bridges that were built in the 1930s. So they are single lane bridges. So what happens is it's a choke point for these two bridges for traffic that's accessing or coming from Madera Canyon. And we're reconstructing these bridges. In between these bridges exists a culvert over a wash that does not qualify for the federal off-system bridge funds that we're funding these two bridge replacements with. So what we're looking to do is avoid the expansion of and replacement of the bridges to provide two-way traffic and bicycle facilities to avoid choking that down in the culvert area and then expanding it back out. Because there's a variety of reasons to do that, safety among them. So I'll go ahead and march through the project. If you want to go to the next slide, perfect. So we've got two projects that are currently in the TIP for these two bridges. We're administering them as one project for economies of scale. What we're looking for is just under about $565,000 of CRP requested. We are looking to apply that to current ongoing design efforts for the two bridges so that we can design the culvert to accommodate that two-way traffic and bicycle facility in a continuous manner. So you see the culvert section is in red in between the two bridges that are indicated in blue on the map there. And we're wanting to avoid a single lane culvert crossing within the project extent. Next slide, please. So we own and maintain the 4 miles of roadway leading into the Madera Canyon recreation area. We are looking for this funding. We have consulted with Central Federal Lands. We're getting poised and ready to for a Federal Land Access Program grant that is due at the beginning of November to put in for construction for the culvert section. So what this funding would do is it would put us in a position where we're ready to roll and we don't have to have any project delays. We can work under the same clearances and detour and all the efforts that have gone into the two bridge design and construction preparations. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we're using off-system bridge funding. We're already federalized. We're ready to, we're following federal process. So pretty straightforward on our availability to utilize the federal carbon reduction program funds. We do have safety concerns with the both the sight distance and the speeds that would be accommodated with making the two bridges 2 lanes. And so that's a good, really the core of our reason to address the culvert as we can rather than defer it to a later year. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we're looking to develop plans to address the increased approach speeds and the reduced visibility. We are addressing RTA mileage goals. The combined projects would provide 1.02 miles of bike lane to the roadway in a heavily used recreation area. And while the RTA may not be seeking this in this call for projects, the connection of all three would be the additional delivery of 2 bridges and 1 culvert replacement that the RTA could claim on their delivery of RTA 1. Next slide, please. So that's it for that project. A little bit unique, but really puts us in a great position to deliver on a FLAP grant. We've had good consultation with Central Federal Lands, and we're poised and we're in a great position to receive that funding. We've been told we're a very strong candidate. Getting all the way into handling design costs would put us in a very strong position for that funding.
Thank you, Paul. So would full funding be necessary for this project to be viable?
I'm sorry, say that again. Justin?
Would full funding of full CRP funding be required for this project to be viable?
This is the best estimate on the costs that would be associated to adding basically a scope change to the design efforts going on right now.
Okay.
I imagine there's a little bit of wiggle room in there, but really it's pretty tight because we're pretty deep into design right now.
Okay, thank you, Paul. It's just the same question I've been asking others, maybe phrased a little differently. So any other questions?
Anybody?
Be online?
So the funding for this would be just for the design, is that correct? Just for the design?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. The CRP funding would handle design. We are poised and ready to attain construction funding for the culvert section from Federal Land Access Program. The construction of the other 2 bridges is all accommodated. This is filling in that middle part. Design with CRP, construction with FLAP grant.
Is that culvert less than 20 foot in span? Is that the reason why it's not
That's right.
qualified for off-system bridge?
Yep.
And, well, anybody? Any other questions?
The full design cost, have you already gone out to bid for design costs, or is it just a estimate?
We're in design now for the 2 bridges. This would be supplementing that design contract to design the culvert section, so it's all continuous.
Okay, gotcha.
So it would basically be a change order to the design consultant that we have on board right now. So we're looking for the funding now and ready for it so that we can seamlessly step into the middle section design for the culvert section.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll be securing construction funds for that in November for the culvert?
For the what part?
For the culvert.
From
the land.
Application is due early November, so
Okay.
I think that might be fiscal 27 or 28. It lines up with our construction of the bridges itself, and that's one actually economy of scale. We don't have to redo clearances, and we don't have to redo the detour that we will have in place for the bridge construction.
Thank you. And if there's no other questions, I guess we can move on, Jamie.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Paul. So feel free to start with your.
All right. The third and final application is in the middle population area of 5 to 49,000 in population. This is a South Houghton multi-use path project that's currently in the TIP. It is funded with Regional Transportation Alternative Grant funds. Go ahead to the next slide and we'll get through this quickly. All right, so this is in South Houghton from Camino del Toro to Forest Feeser. And then there's another section from Vista Monte Drive to Sarita Road. This is basically surrounding Sycamore School. So we're addressing issues with pedestrian safety and access for access to the school and surrounding businesses and community centers. The requested amount that we have identified is 400,000. We originally were looking at a little bit less. As we looked at it further, we're at the 30% design stage. And we're seeing cost escalation continue to go up. So we were hoping to request a smaller amount, but the 400,000 is what we've identified for the need associated with construction. Go ahead to the next slide. So there's currently no sidewalks on that South Houghton portion. The access we're looking to enhance is to and from Sycamore Elementary and Corona Foothills Middle School. There's also a variety of different markets, restaurants, hardware stores, commercial centers associated with Corona de Tucson. Go ahead to the next slide. So we're looking to construct a 10-foot wide path on the east side of South Houghton for the section that I mentioned to you. The project will add ADA improvements and improve the existing driveway configuration to make those all ADA compliant. We do have some significant flooding, drainage, and safety issues along the multi-use path. That is really a good portion of the reason that the additional funding is needed. As you may have seen in the photo earlier, it's currently taking pedestrians on road through wash areas and things of that nature. So we're trying to address that in our design, and there's some significant challenges associated with that. Next slide. So the multi-use path will provide 2 miles of bicycle facilities and 2 miles of pedestrian facilities, and enhance the connection with existing neighborhood, elementary and middle school, businesses, and commercial areas with a separate pedestrian and cycling facility. I think that's it. Oh, wait, let's see what else we have here. Sorry. My apologies. I think I mentioned a good portion of this. We're at the 30% design. That design is local funded. The project can continue without the full amount, but it is definitely a necessity for addressing the safety features and the flood issues that we're faced with out there. So it would be some interesting maneuvers to figure out how we can deliver a viable project if we don't receive this funding. And I think I addressed everything else here.
Great. Thank you, Paul. And I think you addressed my question that I've been asking about viability if it doesn't receive full funding. Any other questions from the TPC?
I don't see any. Is that from the committee?
Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So next up we have, staff members from the Tohono Nation Santa Fe District to talk about their project. And you've got a handout. We can also put it on screen. So Issa, if you don't mind, please putting their handout on.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess we can do the handout in addition. So I'm John Baskett with the San Javier District of the Tohono Nation, and we're here to talk about the San Javier District Pedestrian Pathway Project. So San Javier District of the Tohono Nation, we're an underserved tribal community, low-income community, and rural. This San Javier District project, the Pedestrian Pathway Project, began back in 2017, and we ran into some unfortunate snags with right-of-way acquisition. There was right-of-way approved. We had documentation. Unfortunately, there was a snafu there, and we'll get into that here shortly. The project is fully federalized. Process began for construction until we ran into these right-of-way issues, which are mitigated now that we'll get into. The pathway will be 0.7 miles, and it'll connect basically where I-19 sits. It bisects San Javier District. So there will be, this pathway will provide full connectivity from the east side of I-19 to the central hub of the community. It's a very vital corridor. The idea is that we'll have its terminus at Little Nogales Road. We've had several pedestrian and vehicular accidents, which include fatalities in this region. Additionally, Pima Association of Governments, ADOT, partnered with San Javier District for an RSA. The first one was done in 2010, and the second one was done in 2023. Both RSAs in the findings revealed that a pedestrian pathway through this area would be vital. In the 2023 RSA, when they did their research, they went at night and they witnessed over 100 community members walking on the street in this area. So not only is it vital to serve for pedestrian and bicycle leisure activity, it's for the general well-being of the community. It's a really vital pathway. I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to Mark to go over the background and occurrences that led to the project becoming critically inactive.
Thank you, John. Yeah, as John alluded to briefly, unfortunately, when the Centerville Road Pedestrian Pathway Project began, the project data, which included the official right-of-way documentation, was housed in our district database and was not housed in the cloud at that time. And then we had some staff changes and all that data got lost. And that was a huge blow to the project. So that project, right around that time, the BI also had asked for the verification of the documents. And unfortunately, those were not able to be located at that time. So we kind of had to reinvent the wheel and start the right-of-way acquisition process all over again. As many of you may or may not be aware, getting right away on the allotted lands is a very lengthy process, very time consuming. And the planning department was working towards reacquiring that right away for several years, which led to the project, of course, being put on critically inactive status, which completely made sense at the time. Unfortunately, this year, really by chance, we rediscovered the actual right-of-way documents in a completely different area. And by then, we went ahead and started moving forward immediately again on the project with ADOT. And at that juncture, because the project sat for so long, like a lot of projects with inflation and everything going on, the construction costs have gone up. And ADOT determined it was going to be a deficit of approximately $415,000 on the project for the construction and redesign. And again, it was ADOT's engineers and construction people that provided us those numbers. So in addition to the construction cost, of course, we're having to reprogram some of the current funding for a necessary redesign of the project to also to new construction in the area that has occurred since the project got initiated. So with that, I'll just kind of turn it back over to John.
I just want to add that if the CRP funding doesn't come through the project, as far as viability, it won't continue to its original terminus. So the pedestrian pathway will end somewhere halfway down. So this is definitely important funding for the viability to actually continue the project. We are requesting 391, 345 for federal. And I guess I just, at this point, open it up to any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, John and Mark. Any questions?
Which population category is this in?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's under 5,000. Okay. There was a little bit of a snafu when I had originally put 0 to 15, supposed to be under 5.
Any other questions? Folks online?
Paul.
Have you discussed with ADOT? I don't know the details of reactivating a project. Like, is that something that will run into issues with the obligation of funding by May, or is it just you turn back on those newly found right-of-way documents, ADOT accepts, and you move forward?
Yeah, we've had a couple of meetings regarding this with ADOT and PAG as well. And there shouldn't be any issues. We should be able to obligate these by 2026. we're kind of moving through some of that right now.
And given that, is design of the new section completed, or will you have to get back into, so it looked like the funding might, are you trying to cover both design and construction? And I guess I'm not real clear, can we do that with the CRP funds? Do they need to be separated by year as per, previous ADOT guidance? I'm not quite sure how to thread that needle and whether or not that becomes an issue.
Absolutely. And to speak to your question, we're using current funds that we're reprogramming for the redesign. So what we're trying to do is recoup some of that with this. I shouldn't have delineated the two items separately. It's actually strictly construction dollars.
And if I may just add, it sounds like you're working directly with the project manager of ADOT, right? Who's
Correct.
working with ADOT finance staff. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Other questions? Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you presenters for the excellent presentations and for the questions from the TPC. So we'll now transition into a discussion of allocation. And so we want to switch screens. Isa, if you could please allow Pari to put on screen her Excel file. And so we want to open it up to the TPC for any proposals, number one, but we can also, as Pari can quickly orient you to an Excel file that can help us track any proposals for funding based on those population bands. So maybe before we get into any proposals from the TPC about allocations, Pari, do you mind just walking them through, please, your Excel file?
Yes. So to address a question earlier about the updated amount by population area, I'm sharing screen. I'm not sure how to put it up on. There we go. So this is the updated amount. So you'll see that the bulk of it came out of the greater than 200,000 population area. And that's because with this new approach of a project-driven approach where there are sliding scales between the population areas, just as long as the total amount awarded make up to the total amount available. With the nature of the remaining contract and how we've built for the carry forward in the past, the bulk of it came out of the greater than 200,000 population band. And this is a tool that will help guide us through the discussion today. This is the amount that we have available for award, and table to your right. As we put in some ideas about how much we want to award, you will see that the amount here will start to go down. So will kind of tell us after awarding one project, how much money we'll have left. So for example, if I say we award $20,000 for less than 5 population band, just as an example, you'll see that the remaining from the less than 5 population area will go down by 20,000, and so will the total maximum available. So this tool will help us keep track and kind of fit the puzzle pieces together. So if along the discussion you want to throw out some idea, I can put it into this table and kind of see how they fit together.
Great, thank you, Pari. Any questions about this tool? And so with that, maybe if we can keep that on screen, do want to entertain any proposals from TPC members. We were hearing about some projects that would not be viable if there was a reduction in funding. Some are scalable. So I think that's an important consideration again, because there's more requested than there is funding available. So we do have options if we're unable to come to a recommendation today, but if we're able to come to a recommendation today, that will help us keep on schedule. I know the priority was to try to get these funds obligated in fiscal year 26. So it would be worth seeing how far we can get with this today. So, any proposals? Go ahead, Andy.
What I hope will be the low-hanging fruit first, since there's only one application for funding in the 5 to 49,000 population band, I'd propose awarding the full 400,000 amount there.
And just to confirm, like, I'm pretty sure we know the answer. we don't have the flexibility to take that remaining balance into another population area. And I don't believe there's any overlap of the other projects where they're straddling both population areas that I'm aware of. Because there's going to be money left over from the
Right.
548 because we don't need the
150,000.
full 548. Hopefully we won't need it.
It actually, if I may, could we maybe clarify, Pari? So must we use the funding in the 5 to 49K? Because we're capped at the 2.8,
Correct.
right? But
Mhm.
what if it was a combination of greater than 200 and less than 5?
Sure, we can do that.
So I don't know that it's a must, I guess, to that proposal. Is that kind of what we were thinking? It is kind of confusing.
Like, yeah,
But these are the maximums that she's showing on the map.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If I may, just as a scenario, so for example, if we used all of the greater than 200K at 2.591 and then around 300,000 of CRP less than 5K, that would exhaust the total pool, even though you would see individual areas that weren't completely consumed. This is different than you've seen it in the past because we wanted to allow the flexibility to have a project in any one of those three areas be able to consume those funds. But ultimately, the 2.849 is the limiting factor. But none of the individual bands must be consumed entirely.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Pari. I see a question from Tony.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So question, can any of the funds be carryover funds, or is this kind of a use or lose scenario based on the amounts per the population areas?
Say that these federal funds are use or lose or obligate or risk losing.
Yeah,
More
is
precisely. So, yeah.
yeah, can they be carried over to another year, or is this the last bite of the apple?
You know, subject to a case-by-case analysis with ADOT Finance, but there's no guarantee. There are some restrictions statewide on the amount that can be loaned from year to year. So that's unknown because it's across the state. And there's also concern about this particular funding program, carbon reduction program, and maybe being a target for rescission of funds. And that's why there was a desire to try to find projects that could obligate in 26. We did talk about, the ability to maybe obligate in 27, but the recommendation from the TPC in July was to focus on those that could obligate in 26.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, then just to add to that, yeah, that's my understanding as well too. Federal funds are time sensitive. So they need to be obligated within a certain period of time, otherwise you run the risk of losing them. So, yeah.
I may Pima. Oh, geez.
Sorry.
Oh,
we got, okay, here comes the hands. Jason, you're first.
Yeah, I would recommend full funding for the San Javier District's project for the under 5K. Was it 341? I believe it was.
Six. Is there anything else, Jason? Fausto.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, can we put the projects all on the spreadsheet and then we can start evaluating or taking a look at the numbers that we have to work with?
Paul.
Just a quick question. I know that we also have the PAG RTAG funding application coming up, and I don't know what the thought process has been from the jurisdictions on that, but I wonder, are the current sponsors expecting to be able to go for that funding for these particular projects? Do you have other projects in mind? We're not looking to go after RTAG for these projects. We do have something else in mind for that call for projects, but I'm wondering, might there be an opportunity to look at both funding sources? Because we know that there's RTAG funding that's going to be up for competition. Are these projects eligible? Are they intending to go for that funding?
I guess Andy can answer for me. Can you answer that one? As part of the city
Sure.
treasurer?
For us, yeah, we are intending to apply for projects in our tag, different projects, assuming this was awarded. I think we likely still would, because if I remember correctly, what are the years that those funds are available?
Fiscal years 27 and 28.
Yeah. So we were hoping to move this project before then. I'll on a different point, but while I have the mic, now that I understand, I might have to kind of, I like the idea of putting them all here and then maybe cutting, but reconsider my earlier motion to add the full funding for the 5 to 49 for the South Houghton Road project, now that I understand that it actually reduces the ability to fully utilize the other population bands. So I'm sorry, I didn't understand that to begin with. And then I'll just maybe offer a comment as for some way to guide the conversation. Since we have to make some difficult decisions here, in my mind, I'm sort of leaning towards prioritizing projects that are ready for construction over projects that are seeking design funding for the more immediate benefit to the community as a result of constructing things.
John, are you going to be seeking RTAG funds?
Those are a little bit too far off from our project timeline. And I believe we looked at the viability, and I don't think there's a fit.
So if I may, just to kind of step back, I think, Andy, were you thinking of retracting your first recommendation for the 5 to 49 at this time? And then I did hear a recommendation from Jason to award the Santa Fe District project. So just want to make sure that we're up to date on what's shown on screen.
Yeah, for the time being, I would like to retract that recommendation. I appreciate the earlier request and how we're approaching it now to show the full funding amounts so we can see that negative total may not exceed number to know how much we have to cut.
Yeah.
So that's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Perry.
Thank you.
So should it be left in the worksheet for now, or? Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I had the same assumption until I understood how it dealt with the balance.
Oh, Jason, do you still have a question or comment? You have your hand up, Jason Bahi.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I never know how to take my hand down, so I'm just lower hand. There you go. I got
No
it.
problem.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, but thanks again for speaking up earlier. Andy, you have a comment? No? Okay.
If it might help facilitate things, just in the biggest rocks, if we look at the greater than 200 category, right off the bat, both of those projects would not both be able to be fully funded. So that I might make a recommendation that we start there.
I will just go ahead and offer that rather than seeking the full funding request, we reduce our Blackledge request to our current funding shortfall on the project, which is $1.213 million.
213.
747, but we can round off the, yeah.
And 200,000, we're still short about $30,000 that we need to cut from either of these projects.
Well, more to the point. I guess. Sorry, if I may, if we were to potentially allow 200K to go up to the limit, we're still in exceedance of $30,000. That wouldn't solve the entire equation. That would then pretty much still, we'd need to come out of one of the other two funding pools.
All right, can you put the 400,000 request back on South Houghton Road to see what the total may not exceed negative deficit is? Thanks.
And if I may as well, I heard a recommendation to remove the bridge projects because they're design only. Is that still showing up here?
Yes.
Okay.
Remove the.
And I would clarify that would probably be our lowest priority in looking at the entire balance. We didn't look at it from that perspective because of the firewall in between the different population areas. But now that we're calculating that differently, because of the design phase, I think that would be deemed our lower priority.
So you're okay with that?
And this does not include the non-federal 5.7% RTA match contribution as well.
Correct.
We're not showing that here. So.
Well, that's right. That's additional funding, right, from the RTA?
So,
No.
Jose,
Yeah, go ahead, Fausto.
so while they're working on adding that column in, would that then decrease the amount or, so it's the summation of both numbers, right? So for instance, the 391,000, that would be this plus the RTA match is what they're asking for total, so we can then reduce some of the column G.
Did you guys take into consideration the additional RT funds, or is this what you guys are asking for? Less the RT funds?
Yeah, we identified it for each fund source for CRP and RTA fund we just left it at the 5.7% match requirement.
So I believe, if I may, the Santa Fe District project, the 415 is the total request, including the RTA. So the federal side, the award is accurate. I guess going back to the Blackledge, the 1.213, is that the total that's requested or just the federal side?
That's the total that would be requested. So if we want to reverse engineer that to what the federal award would be, that'd be acceptable to us.
Okay. Seeing that we're still almost 500,000 over, all right. And closer.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the whole conversation previously, but I know Houghton was removed originally, and then we added it back in. I guess, is there priority in regards to that one?
I would say that Palo Verde sidewalks is our high priority from Pima County's perspective. We've already eliminated our third priority project. And so that's why I'm relatively silent at this point.
On that Houghton project, I noticed that it had two components, like south of the school and north of the school. If I understood.
That's simply because there's already existing path in the middle section. So we don't have to reconstruct that.
Do you have a sense of the cost of those, the Or this is, the whole thing is designed, right?
The
You're
whole
trying to
thing
fill a
is
shortfall.
designed, so the cost
Yeah.
bridges the entire thing. I think the challenges are in the southern section largely.
Thank you. I see Jason's hand is up.
Yeah, regarding the Houghton project, I seem to recall, I believe it was an RTAG award that was approved last year or the year before. I just happened to sit on that review committee for for this project, and I believe Houghton was on that um, application process as well. So how does that funding work into what you're requesting now?
Thing is existing, both Houghton and Palo Verde Sidewalk. Both projects have RTAG funding in them. This is just additional funding to address shortfalls.
Okay, thank you.
It sounded like if the South Houghton MEP was still viable, but without the funding, it would strip some of the important safety features. Is that correct, Paul? Is that what I heard you say?
Well, I think there are design and construction issues associated with the topography largely.
Okay.
And so I think we would have to look at whether or not we can deliver a project. It would likely not be able to address all the ADA requirements that we're looking to address within the path construction. And so we're going to have to rethink that altogether.
Okay. If we're at I was just going to say, if we're at a standstill, I think our fallback would be to maybe regroup and come back in November. But I think what we would propose is maybe a selection panel be formed very quickly of any non-applicants, and based on what was presented today and what's in the funding requests, would make some adjustments and maybe bring that back in November. But I guess as I say that, I'm kind of thinking that might be cutting into bone, as someone said, to some of these projects. And so there is some risk of that happening too. So if someone has another proposal in terms of how we proceed, but I don't want to, if we're at a stopping point where we're at a standstill and we want to keep the meeting going, we can regroup and come back in November as well. But are there other proposals?
I'll put one out there for consideration. No offense to my friends at the county. These are difficult decisions, but to remove the Houghton multi-use path project, keep the San Javier pedestrian project whole, and look to cut whatever the remaining difference is equally between Palo Verde sidewalks and Blackledge.
If we can kind of get clarification, I'm still a bit confused whether or not we can, whether this is effectively 3 calls for projects for 3 population areas, or 1 call for project that can kind of look at the sum total of the available funding. Because I see that's how the exercise is being done, but what I don't want to walk into is a condition in which we, for example, leave all the funding in the middle population area there unused because Houghton multi-use path is not moving forward. Is that funding then available and transferable to the other population bands? My understanding is no, but the exercise seems to say yes.
Yes, in the sense that, let's say, we have 1 big gallon of water that we're trying to put into 3 different cups. You can put 1 cup all the way full and leave the 2 cups empty. The water in the gallon would still be used 100% to pour into that cup. Or you can divide it 3 cups equally, or 2 cups 3/4 of the way full and then a little bit in the 3rd cup. So you will not leave anything behind. So this designed in a way to maximize the chance for us to obligate every single dollars we have by doing behind the scenes shuffling around other projects that share the same funding pool in different population band so that we can make funding available in the population area that needs it the most. So in a way, for example, if we were to remove South Houghton Road, we wouldn't be missing out on leaving any funds unobligated.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Oh, wait. Just to add to that, it's primarily in.
Phone a friend, yeah.
I love it.
My bad.
Oh,
Mr.
wait,
Chair.
hold on.
Sorry about that. There's also people nodding off, so I was like. Mr. Chair, if I may, there's a exceeding balance right there of 494. Will it kill the two big projects there if we were to split the difference in that negative right there between the two?
A lower split, baby. That work?
So you're talking about taking out 240 or so from each project? The end of the day, we will be searching under every rock for all three of these projects to look for funding. I would say that the culvert project is a little bit more flexible for us, and that's fine that it is the first to be examined for removal. But both the multi-use path and Palo Verde, we're going to need to find that funding somewhere. So it's either looking for funding in Palo Verde or looking for funding for Houghton. Either half dozen of one or six of another.
Kind of same response. We'll need to find the funding to cover the shortfall. My hearing that the Palo Verde sidewalks was the county's kind of first priority was why I originally suggested focusing on that by removing the Houghton project and splitting the remaining difference we still have to cut from Palo Verde and Blackledge.
So one thought, thank you, Adam, great suggestion is to, Mr. Chair, maybe take a break, 5-minute break for the huddle of the project sponsors to see if they can work something out. I see Santa Fe District is nodding, city and county, what do you think? Mr. Chair,
Right.
what do you think?
I agree.
Okay, so we'll adjourn for 5 minutes, please. Thank you.
Recall the meeting, call to order. Everybody can take a seat. All right. So where do we left off? Jamie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for those online as well, and to those who submitted proposals for your deliberations. I know it's a difficult situation, so I hear that there may be a proposal, and so I'll turn the floor over to one of those who wants to make the proposal. Thank you.
I'll try and summarize the proposal here. So we're offering to remove $54,000 from the Blackledge Bike Boulevard request. Let's call it 54,568. And I don't want to speak for my colleagues who aren't here right now, but they offered to remove 40,000 from the San Javier Road project. And then our hope, Paul, do you want to speak to this? Our hope was that we could advance a recommendation to keep each of the remaining 4 projects available for funding to be awarded, with the county making a determination about how much of the available funds would be split between Houghton Road and Palo Verde sidewalks.
That's correct. And part of the dilemma we have here is we have a requirement to obligate construction funding in fiscal 26. So both these projects have that requirement. And so we need to figure out how we can deliver a viable project for each of these and to obligate fiscal 26 construction funding. So leaving one completely unfunded may not be viable, but when we go back and look at other fund sources, we may find ourselves in a dilemma where we didn't fully anticipate where impact fees are coming from or other fund sources. So we want to have that flexibility if it's, Houghton is fully taken care of from another funding source. We don't know that right now today. So we want to have that flexibility to be able to address that.
Correctly, the 400,000 that remains to be removed would be up to the county to determine between those 2 projects how that would be reduced.
That's what's being proposed.
So just to restate that one other way, we're looking at 1.409 effectively to be distributed between those 2 projects, but the award would basically be that total amount to the 2 projects, ratio to be determined later.
That's another way to look at it. Exactly right.
So maybe for the purposes of this worksheet, we can just pull out 200,000 for each so we can just get a balance. But we'll make the note that we won't hard code it like that.
That's acceptable.
And with that, Mr. Chair, if we could move to a recommendation, so I guess if there would be a motion for that, if it's clear to everybody.
So the 3 jurisdictions, are they comfortable with this? Okay.
Yes.
Hearing that.
Can I
Oh,
ask
wait a minute, Catherine? Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Jose. Just because I don't have all of the numbers right in front of me, easy to see. Can you remind me how much, I guess what the original submittal was for each of these and what we are down to for each of these, so that I get a better idea of how the trim, how proportionate the haircut was to all these projects? And I would ask that yeah. Florida's still in there.
On screen, the summary table.
Should be. Yep. Catherine, can you see that?
I can. But I didn't memorize the numbers that are on the spreadsheet at the same time. Is there any way
So
to like
maybe,
put both together or add a column? I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is I want to make sure there's proportionality in the way, I mean, potentially I want to see if there's proportionality. There doesn't necessarily have to be, there's other factors at play. But being that the county did take a significant reduction in the Palo Verde project when we originally submitted, you know, in some respects, we're trying to get whole from that original project. That is a project of extreme need next to an area where many of the residents only have the access to their feet, a bicycle or transit. And so I think this is a key project, Palo Verde, for us.
Ari is putting the numbers on this other table. I don't know if that helps, Catherine. Does that show what is being proposed on on that new column?
That does help. So if I'm looking at that correctly, let's see, county is 200, 600, 800, basically $1 million cut. And that's, you know, similar to the city. Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, do we have anybody else questions? If not, this is the action item.
Yeah, we're looking for a recommendation.
Okay, what's the step up and give us a recommendation?
This is Jason. I move to approve the recommendations funding as shown.
Okay, we have one recommendation. And we have a second. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I just
Andy.
want to make sure your comments are captured, Paul and Catherine, that should at a later date, the county decide they want to move some of the funds shown here between Houghton and Palo Verde, that they have the ability to do that without exceeding the total.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
all right. Any other questions, comments? All right, here none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Recommendation carries. Thank you. All right, guys, let's move on to, I think we're in, look at that, item 5. We're on to item number 5, PAG Dynamic Traffic Assignment, DTA Model Development Update. James.
Right, can I get the presentation slides up? And just a quick check to make sure this clicker works. All right, there we go. All right. Hello, good afternoon, TPC members. Thanks for having me. I'm James Tsukishi, Transportation Data Science Manager here at PAG. I'm going to be giving a quick update on the development process of the Dynamic Traffic Assignment Model and its current status. And then the clicker stopped working. Come on. You saw it working a second ago. There we go. Quick run through of what I plan to be covering here. Just a quick overview of the difference between the static and dynamic traffic assignment models, an overview of the DTA model, development status, overview of some of its major components and its outputs, some of its future planned use cases, and the newly developed air quality module for this model. So first of all, static traffic assignment model. If you've seen any of our past model works for the TIP, RMAP, or any of the associated projects, you've seen outputs from the static traffic assignment model. This is what's used in our trip-based and activity-based models. Static traffic assignment models are relatively computationally simple. They can be run on more limited hardware, limited inputs, and I didn't say it explicitly here, but they do tend to run quite a bit faster than DTA models. Static traffic assignment models aggregate vehicle behavior based on mathematical relationships between volume, roadway capacity, and speed travel times, in this case using a volume delay function. Tends to have a larger time intervals for demands and outputs. For example, we have 2-hour AM and PM peak periods, a midday 5.5-hour period, and the overnight period is another 14.5 hours. Also has fairly coarse network representations, looking at things like the total number of through lanes, presence of signals, speed limits, and calculated free flow speeds and the like. And then again, it has a mathematical representation of vehicle flows, capacity, and queuing behaviors. Dynamic traffic assignment models, or DTA models, are conversely much more computationally extensive. They require a lot more resources to develop the network and the inputs, as well as to run the model. In contrast to the static models, the DTA simulates individual vehicle behavior on a sub-second interval for microscopic models, or several second intervals for mesoscopic models. They have fairly short time intervals for both demand and outputs. 15 to 30-minute intervals are fairly typical, but theoretically there is no lower limit. They also have a much more detailed network representation, including things like specific signal timing, the number of lanes, turn bays, lane connectivity. Also can incorporate things like a schedule-based transit network, and driver behavior such as desired speeds, which I'll get into later. They also have physically constrained representations of vehicle flows, capacity, and queuing. Again, they are modeling individual vehicles. You can have parameters set for individual classes or subclasses of vehicle profiles. They actually model individual interactions between vehicles. And again, there are actual physical representations of the vehicles within the network. This one's just a quick side-by-side comparison. On the left, you have a screenshot. If you've seen, again, any of our regular travel demand model outputs, you may have seen something that looks like that left image. That's just color-coded directional links based on daily roadway volumes. Meanwhile, on the right, you can again see those individual vehicles in the network. If you look really closely, you might be able to see the little red and green arrows at the intersections that signify which movements currently have green lights. Again, you have individual cars queuing up, moving through the intersections, making decisions and interacting with each other. Looking at the model development process as a whole, this has been a several-year process. The initial transmodeler network was based on our travel demand model, as well as some independent exploratory efforts that were undertaken by Caliper, the producer of the software that we run both of our travel demand models as well as the DTA model on. That initial network was then reviewed and updated by PAG and in-house exploratory project in 2021 through 2023 to create a working base network. That network was then handed back off to Caliper for a calibration, validation, and module development project that was completed this spring. Currently, we're working on a review of everything that we received back from Caliper, as well as updating that earlier network to a current base model or base year. The model is currently using demands taken from the activity-based model, which is using those longer demand intervals, but weighted by VMT time of day metrics that were developed by PAG as part of our annual traffic count program. Signal timings in this network were taken from a 2021 City of Tucson synchro network, some additional updates from ADOT, and for signals where we weren't able to get any real-world timings for, we put some reasonable placeholder signal timings. Transit was based on the 2024 SunTran network retrieved through the GTFS system. This will just be a quick run through of some of the components of the model itself: network, structure, driver and vehicle, transit. This one, again, just to look at the static traffic assignment one last time. As previously noted, this is a fairly simple and limited set of inputs. You have link lengths, area type, urban or urban, suburban, rural, through capacity or through lanes, which is used to evaluate capacity, as well as link class, freeway, arterial, collector, et cetera. It also, of course, has speed limits and derived free flow speeds from those speed limits. Oh, I missed one. And then at the intersections, of course, we have flags for whether or not there is a signal. Looking at the DTA, this is now much more complicated. Of course, we still have things like length, link class, speed limits, and free flow speeds. Except now we're looking also at adding in explicitly modeled lanes, explicitly modeled turn bays, the connections between lanes. We have markers for lane change permissions, tapering whenever you add or remove a lane, roadway geometry such as the medians and everything else. Signals, again, are also explicitly modeled. We have, this is a screenshot from the, for an actuated signal. We have of course, stops and yields, various forms of pre-time signals, and then these actuated signals. For the more complicated signals, such as what you frequently see at the freeway interchanges, we can also do multiple node linked signals. Driver parameters, this is just the screenshot of the parameter file page for the modified General Motors car following model. Complicated, I'm not going to go into detail on that. Also have driver parameters. Again, this is just one of many, but this one is the desired speed. So separate from the actual roadway speed limit, there are parameters that we can input that emulate the range of driver behavior. For this one, for example, we have 29% of vehicles doing wanting to do exactly the speed limit, another 28% going 5 over, and associated distributions both a little bit faster and a little bit slower. Vehicle fleet parameters. We can set mixes for various types of cars, trucks, motorcycles, buses and everything else. This one is the default car distribution, which is why a number of those fields are 0. We have separate demand files for light, medium, and heavy trucks. The transit module does let us add user-defined fleet classes. So some of these come from the default classes, but we do, for example, have both bus and street cars available here. It's also, I skipped one, sorry. Some of this data is importable from GTFS, and there are a range of options for modeling these, such as using just aggregate headways or exact bus schedules or transit schedules. This is an example of the route schedule. We pull it in, set its time, set its waypoints, and it knows when and where the transit vehicles are supposed to be. This is just an example of what the transit network looks like when we pull it straight in from GTFS. Not visible here is that there is a little bit of cleanup that we have to do once we get this, but it generally ends up being pretty close, even just as a straight import. Output visualizations. This is just a single static screenshot. If this were a video, you would see all those dots actually driving around the network. But this one is showing speeds at a given instant in the model simulation. Of course, I-10 is high speed. Everywhere else is a bit lower, although aviation is also kind of popping out there. You can see that there are cars stopped at intersections and basically making their way around the region. Zooming in, again, you can see those individual vehicles. You can see in this case a number of cars making that eastbound left turn, as well as just otherwise queuing up, waiting to cross through the intersections. There's a lot of built-in output parameters that the software has. aggregate hourly flow, hourly totals, VMT, VHT, delay, average speeds, average travel times. These are currently aggregated at the 1 hour level just for demonstration purposes, but those are user definable. Can also break those down by origin and destination TAZs. So you can tell how many vehicles go from point A to point B, how long it takes them on average. Also these I believe are aggregated at the 24-hour level, but we can always break those down as well. Trip distributions over the course of the day. There are others, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to kind of run through this. Relevant to the CRP program, we did commission the development of an air quality module. This is a supplemental add-on. It matches the DTA vehicle types to move source types, calculates a number of metrics as the model itself runs, aggregates those, and after the model run is complete, we can then post-process those to generate moves input files for our air quality modeling process. Some future use cases for this, enhanced regional metrics. We're looking at ways to use this as part of the TIP and RMAP analyses, as well as, again, to feed into our various air quality and moves modeling. Enhanced time of day metrics, because this is a continuous model rather than just those 4 periods, as well as allowing us to pull 15 or 30-minute output intervals rather than just whole period averages. Also has the potential to be used for things like special event planning, given that there are these explicitly modeled vehicles, can examine both entry and, I didn't put it here, but entry or exiting queues, physical capacity constraints of the roadways around an event location. If a road can't handle a certain amount of vehicles, well, that's what happens. As it also lets us do a more detailed capacity analysis in general, and could be used to help evaluate project impacts. With that, I'm not sure if there's time for questions or comments, but if there is.
Questions, comments?
Not to belabor it, we can follow up offline, but I am very curious about, more capacity analysis. And I'm wondering, can you push the model to understand what current corridors are underperforming most severely, for example? We're going to be entering into development of a transportation master plan for unincorporated facilities within Pima County. And it'd be really valuable for us to know from a capacity standpoint, based on your modeling, where to look first and where to look in most detail so that we can understand where the capacity needs most prevalent from your perspective. So we'll be certain to follow up, but I'm curious about your capability to help us out on that.
We can look at that.
All right, anybody, any other questions? Okay, this is an informational item. Thank you, Jim.
All right, thank you.
Well, at 3 o'clock, so if you guys are okay, we could just continue going. I want to respect your time, but all right, let's move on to item number 6. Update on the Regional Active Transportation Plan, also known as RATP. Hannah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, committee members. I'm just gonna set Mr. Joannes up for the presentation. But you've been getting regular updates on the PAG Regional Active Transportation throughout the development process. We've, of course, been working closely with jurisdictional representatives throughout the plan development and through the technical working group. A number of you sit on that working group as well. So we just concluded the 3rd and final phase of the public engagement for the active transportation plan. Where members of the public could actually go online, review the full draft plan, as well as the project recommendations through an interactive map. The public had the opportunity to provide comments and feedback, and we're also at a number of in-person events. So we're currently in the process of finalizing the plan and incorporating those remaining comments and feedback. This project has been going on for quite a while, so we're entering the final stages to complete the project. So the consultant project manager from Kimberly Horn, Chris Joannes, is here today, so he'll provide a presentation on where we're at with the project, as well as updates from the last presentation given to this committee, which was over the summer. So thank you, and I will turn it over to Chris.
All right. Thank you, Hannah. And thank you all for time on your agenda today. I know it's been a long meeting, so I'll try to go through this quickly, but feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions. So we'll just do a brief recap of the RITP process. We'll talk about the recommended projects that we ended up with. There's over 100, so we won't list each of them individually, but we'll give you kind of an overview of where we ended up. We'll give you a quick tour of the document, so if there's something specific that you're looking for, you'll know where in the document to find that. And then we'll touch on our third and final round of public involvement that, as Hannah mentioned, we just finished up. So on the process here, it's been about a 2-year process in the end. We did vision goals and objectives, a large existing conditions analysis, and then for the last 9 months or so, been working through identifying scenarios to build a regional network, developing our active transportation toolbox that is now a regional resource to be able to identify specific types of improvements and where they're context appropriate, and doing an air quality benefits analysis. What we're wrapping up right now is the documentation phase of the RITP itself. So as I mentioned, we're right at the end of the process here, so I'll just skip on by the schedule one there, and we'll talk about project. So back in June, the last time we presented to this group, we talked through steps 1 through 4. We first looked at where is there a need for developing a regional scale active transportation network across the PAG region. And so we looked at identifying different alternatives and waiting for different scenarios for us to look at what pops out when we look at it from different ways, to see which roads, no matter how we look at the regional transportation network, pop up as having an active transportation need. We then identified a high priority network for each of these scenarios, and then from that selected a high priority network for the region. And then from that, we built our actual project recommendations, which we'll talk about a little bit more here. So what you're seeing in the map there on the right-hand side of the screen shows that final priority network for active transportation improvements at the regional scale. One thing we'll mention is that local agencies will have a lot of other priority segments to connect to and from this. But when we're looking at the region as a whole and we want to provide connectivity across jurisdictions and boundaries, this is where we landed. What we did from this is looked at each segment along that network. We reviewed the existing facilities, and if it already has a context appropriate facility, we kind of checked that one off, moved on to the next segment. If there's already a programmed project that has a context appropriate facility on that segment, then we could check that off, move to the next segment. Then we looked at previously recommended active transportation improvements from plans that have already been done by PAG or member agencies across the region. And again, if there's a context appropriate recommendation that was already there, then we could check the box and move on. So everything that we were left with is where we developed our own new recommended projects as part of the RITP. And to do that, we used our active transportation toolbox. So we worked really hard with a lot of your staff across the member agencies to build this active transportation toolbox that looks at on-street facilities, off-street facilities, crossing improvements, traffic calming measures, and quick build solutions. And looked at where are they context appropriate, what are some other resources for designing or funding those. And so I think the next slide here has an example of one of the pages from a buffered bike lane where you can see we lay out kind of the land use context where it may be appropriate, the speed and volume where it may be appropriate, the relative level of cost, some design considerations there on the lower left, and then a whole bunch of resources on the lower right for you to find more information if you're interested in exploring those a little bit more, where to go find some more information on how to design those projects. So from that effort, we came up with 118 total projects spread across that network. The biggest thing I'll point out is you'll see 67 of those 118 projects include multiple types of improvements. So we really went down into the nitty gritty and had this refined in both our second and third rounds of public engagement to really make sure we're getting these recommendations as right as we can to meet the needs of the community. So those multi-treatment projects could include a shared use path that needs to transition to a bike boulevard, for example, where you run into right-of-way issues and then transition back to a shared use path further up the road. It could be a combination of improving sidewalks on a road that doesn't have room for a bike facility, but then including parallel bike boulevards to accommodate bike circulation. Another example we had is there were some roads that were running close to and parallel to the loop. And so the project ended up being, how do we connect from that corridor down to the loop? And so that's where a lot of those projects ended up kind of including pieces and parts of different solution types to just be more reactive to the context around them. All right, so moving into the document itself, it's broken up into 6 chapters and we'll go through each of those here. So the introduction just includes an overview of the plan and its goals, the planning process, and then our vision and guiding principles. Chapter 2 is understanding our region. So this was a lot of our existing conditions work. So our regional data set we put together that you can see at the bottom left there, those are all the data sets that we put together at the regional level, assembling a lot of data that member agencies had put together in kind of a patchwork fashion over time, trying to get to one consolidated, consistent regional existing conditions data set. We looked at previous plans in this section. This is where our technical analyses surrounding where active transportation needs are found, and our first round of public engagement where we ask the public to tell us where they see active transportation needs in the region. The next chapter is identifying our regional goals. So this is where we included those corridor priorities, those 8 colored boxes there, and looked at different weighting allocations to focus on different aspects. So one was maximizing need-based connectivity, one was maximizing overall accessibility to the network, and one focused on maximizing safety. And so from that, as I mentioned before, this is where we identified those 3 scenario priority networks that then ultimately fed into the preferred high priority network. This next chapter kind of falls between identifying the priority network and the actual projects, and it's a brief overview of the active transportation toolbox. And then the full active transportation toolbox is also included as an appendix of this final report. And then finally, we get to strengthening regional connections, which is the projects themselves. So this ended up in a series of tables and maps with corresponding ID numbers. So you can see a snippet there at the bottom left. We tell you what the project is, what the limits are, what types of improvements are included within each project, and then a planning level cost estimate. And again, that corresponds with a series of maps that show you geographically the bounds of the projects and how they fit together. And then the last section is our path to progress. So this is the implementation plan. So we talk through the project delivery process of going from a line on a map where we are in the RATP right now, how to go into potentially further scoping studies, go through the design process, the approvals process, and then ultimately construction and operations. We also lay out potential funding opportunities and their associated local match requirements for active transportation improvements. All right, and then just hitting really quickly on our last round of public engagement we just wrapped up. So we put the draft report up in a social pinpoint site where people could review the draft report. Leave these little sticky notes on there with their comments, and then also look at an interactive web map of the recommended projects. So we pushed that out through social media, similar to what we did in the first couple rounds of engagement. We also attended 5 events. You can see there on the lower left side, again, trying to geographically spread those out around the region to try to get as much feedback as we can. And as Hannah mentioned, we just took that down on Friday. So we are processing, actually Monday. So we're processing those comments, coming up with a comment response for each one of those and integrating any pertinent comments into our final report. And so that's all I had for my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Comments? Thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you.
And see, now we'll move on to item number 7. Transportation Improvement Program related updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the interest of time, we'll keep this very brief. Just a couple of things I'll mention. Members of my team might have others, but wanted to remind everybody about the Regional Transportation Alternatives Grants, RTAG deadline. That is November 7th for those applications. And also just to mention that we will be reaching out after that time to ask for any non-applicants if they would be willing to participate in the competitive selection panel process. So just would love to have some volunteers for that process again. The second thing, we did send out an email earlier this week about federal funding deadlines. As was mentioned earlier, it's kind of a use or lose situation with these federal funds in many cases. So we do have in our TIP policies and procedures that if the amount is $3 million or greater that's programmed in the TIP, to please notify us by the end of October. And with that, I'm looking to my team. Any other updates? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Any questions for Jamie? Hearing none, let's move on to item number 8. Regional Transportation Revenues Update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the TPC, in the interest of time, we won't be walking through the Regional Transportation Revenues Report, but the full report is available to you as part of the packets of today's meeting. If you have any questions, please feel free to follow up with PAC staff, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions, comments? All right. Thank you, Perry. And let's see, moving on to number 9, adjournment. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jose.
Thank you.